In this learning exercise, we're going to look at some GUI programming, graphical user interface programming. In BlueUJ, we have a relatively simple, though primitive, GUI programming environment that we can use. There are some limitations to it, but it does give you a feel for how GUI programs are done, which is kind of nice because otherwise we live all in this little text world, and it's nice to see a little bit how real world programs are done. If you go on in Java, take Java 2 2087, you'll learn more about programming, including programming this GUI stuff without the little primitive tool we're going to look at. So we're going to open up a new project here in BlueJ and go to Tools and look for Simple GUI Extension and run that. And you should see a little extension like this that pops up. So if you don't see this popping up, that means you don't, or if you don't see it here under Tools, Simple GUI Extension, it's not installed. So you have to install it. Now you can actually download the extension. It's just this jar file that's attached right here, and you have to stick it in this folder. Now you should have done this already earlier in an earlier exercise in the course, but if not, you have to stick it in this extension in Windows, depending on where you have BlueJ installed. And I'm not sure on the Mac where you have BlueJ installed, but find your BlueJ folder. It should be in your apps folder, and there should be a lib folder under that and extensions, and then you should be able to just copy this or download this jar file right into that location. And then once you have that, you should be able to see this simple GUI interface pop up. Okay, so we're going to create a simple tip calculator, assuming you're going out to eat with and you want to figure out your tip. So you have your bill amount, and we have different levels of service, and it will calculate the amount of tip and then the total amount you should pay. So we're going to create this with some labels. So some of these are labels, some of these are text fields here and here. There's a button, and these are radio buttons that we're going to work on. Okay, so we're going to try to create that. So let me bring up our simple GUI window again. Here's our GUI window. I'm going to make this a little bigger while, I guess I want to see this other stuff in the background. Okay. So from here I can drag and drop items on here, and I can also change the property of the thing. So I need a labels. I need a bunch of labels. So I'm going to go into labels and drag just some labels. I can click and drag and drop these onto the screen and move them around. So I'm going to need, I think, 4 labels. And again, you can just look at this and do your own design. I need 3 text boxes. So don't use the text areas. That's for paragraphs or multi-line things. We want to use these text fields. So use the text fields here. We're going to need 1 button. That's a button there. Now, one thing to watch when you're in here is that once we're editing our text field, we can't, and if we close it, we can't go back and edit it. Let me show you why. So let's say I've edited this. Now, if right now, it's not saved in my BlueJ folder. So if I do File Save, it'll save it. Now I can actually change the name it's going to save under. If I click on the background here, the background object, it'll have a name GUI project. So I can leave it as GUI project, or I can change that name to something like tip calculator or tip. Now this has to be, all these things, all the names here have to be Java identifier names. So I can't have like spaces or pluses in these. So if you remember the rules for Java identifiers. Okay, so I've changed the name. Now if I hit File Save, it'll say save, and I'll see it. Oops, it's still called GUI. Oh, I didn't hit enter out for that. So it saved it under here. Now I actually have 2 because I changed the name. And this file has all the code in it, and we'll get to this later on. But this has all the code for our commands or our GUI interface, and we'll be adding code to this. Now, every time I'm in here, the GUI editor, and I hit save, it just overwrites this Java file with the new code. Now, if I were to close this GUI window, I wouldn't be able to open it up again with this. There's no way to open this up. It's a kind of a one-way street. So it's kind of primitive in that way. So I want to make sure I keep this GUI window open even throughout testing and all that sort of stuff, and so I can keep updating things. So just keep that in mind. There are some limitations with this GUI interface that industry level programs wouldn't necessarily have. Okay, so I'm going back, I'm creating things. Now I'm going to start changing some of the properties here. So on a lot of these items, I want to change what's displayed in the text. So there's a text property here. So I'm going to have this say, for example, bill amount. And I want this to be tip calculator. So go through here and set up the different properties for this. Now on some of these you want to change their names. So the text fields, we'll want the names of those changed. So if I go back here, so give each text field a meaningful name. They have to be valid Java names, since we'll be doing them in the code. Add the radio buttons and give them meaningful names also. And try to remember that. You might want to jot down some notes on what you're naming things here. Okay, so like this text field is going to be for the bill amount. And I'm going to start it as, let's see, what do I start it as 50 as the default. So I'm going to type in as the value here 50.00. I also want to change its name, and this has to be a valid Java field. I'm going to call this txt bill. Yeah, I think I'll call this, I've mounted a number of places. I'm going to call this txt bill. Hit enter, and same for this. So again, make sure you set all your text fields up with meaningful names. I tend to call my text fields txt something, so I remember their text fields. So I'm going to call one txt tip, one txt bill, etc. And initially I'm going to just put zeros, or I'm going to leave these blank, I guess, because I haven't calculated those yet. txt, the total amount, I'm just going to say txt total. So I'm going to go through and edit these. I'm going to change the label. I want that to be a tip calculator. Now, there are some idiosyncrasies to this interface. When you're typing things in, it helps if you hit enter after you've typed things in, and to modify those. Oops, now I got to make sure I change the right thing. I want to change the label and not the name. So I'm going to give this back to an old label. Okay, let's see if that's so. Tick calculator. Now I can, if I want to make it bigger, you can actually play with the font here, and then this is the font size, so I can make it bigger if I want. Now one thing I'll see in some of these things, like in my buttons and stuff, is that it may not display everything. So if I click on it, usually there's a little box I can make these things bigger. Same here. I'm going to make my button say calculate. And if I make the font bigger on that, it may not fit, so I can drag that bigger. Now the other thing we want to do, I've got a couple more labels to do, is I want to drag in some text, some boxes here, some radio buttons. So I have poor service, good service, and great service. So I'm going to drag in a couple radio buttons and redo those. So I need meaningful names on those, and I need to have the right text value. So I'm going to go up to this first one here and have that to be poor service. Now, one of the other weird things is that every time you hit capital S anywhere on this screen, it picks up a save as, because it has Shift S as a shortcut for save as. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. So poor service, as soon as I hit that capital S here, it'll pop up that window. Same with here. Now I'm going to make a shortcut, a name for this. I'm going to say radio button poor. For that, this radio button, I'm going to say good service. And again, as soon as I hit that capital S, it pops up this save as. I can just hit cancel and do that. Radio button good. And then my last radio button is great service. And capital S pops that up. And radio button, great. So again, I've got to make sure my names are legal Java names. Now, that one other thing is that notice that unfortunately with the radio buttons, there's nothing to make them bigger. So in order to make these bigger, you have to actually go in and find the size method here. 90 is the width and 35 is the height. So it is 35 by 90, and you can just manually change this to like 150 wide, and then it'll display the whole thing. So go on your radio buttons and make the first size 150. So it should be 150 semicolon 35. Okay. So now I have my basic layout that looks pretty much like this does for it. Now I've done much of this. I've created my labels and text fields. I've given the text fields meaningful, valid Java names, and so the accessing them. I've added my radio buttons and my other button here, and given them meaningful Java legal names. I want to keep my simple GUI window open. I'm going to save it, and then we're going to do this mouse click stuff. So let's go back here to my window, and I'm going to hit File, Save. Now, I'm going to delete this old one because I'm now working just with this one. So if I look at my code now that I've saved it, it should have, I can walk through this a little bit. It declares, well, it has a public class here, and it should declare these private members for everything. And these should kind of make sense. The menu we didn't deal with, but I have a button, I have a bunch of labels, and a bunch of text fields. Now it should be using, and it doesn't have my radio button. I didn't save that properly. So it should be matching up. I should see radio buttons and everything that I saved before. So I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to go File, Save, and look at this again. Now this is looking better. So I can see I've got my button here, I've got my labels. I don't care about the label names, and then I have my text fields. But I'm seeing some of this isn't being saved. One of the radio buttons is still called radio button 3, and one of the text fields is still called text field 3. So I can go back in here, and again, often I forget to enter return. So I'm going to call this, oops, my video just finished uploading from previously. So I'm just going to pause that. Okay, sorry, my video popped up there from my other upload for this course. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I type in the right values for my radio button. So this radio button has a good name, this radio button has a good name, and this one should have a great name. So I'm going to change this radio button great and hit enter to record that. So now I'm going to check my text fields, txt bill, txt tip, text field 3. So I'm going to call this, this is going to be txt total, and hit enter. Okay, I think I'll leave my button as button 1. That's fine. I'm going to save this, go back over here. Oops, reload this. Okay, so now I'm looking at in my code. There's a bunch of imports here for the GUI stuff. We can just leave those be. Don't have to worry about them. The menu bar we don't have to worry about, and these labels. Now, I must have a label without any name, and this is going to cause me a problem in Java. So I should check that. My button looks okay. I have a couple more labels. My radio buttons are labeled RB poor, good, and great, and my text fields are labeled appropriately. So that all looked good. And then down here in the code, it actually sets up each of the text fields and buttons. So here's the label, and basically it sets all the properties that we have here. So the one thing I was looking at, and if I try to compile this, it'll give me the error, is one of my labels is blank. So I'm going to click, I think I accidentally deleted the name of a label. Another thing you have to watch is sometimes you end up with when you're clicking around here, it's easy to make something invisible. So if I click on this and I'm trying to change this, and I actually just click down here, it'll make that the object you were just on, invisible. There's this visible invisible flag that can be off and on. So if you lose something, so now my button's gone, and I go, oh, where's my button go? I can go over here and select that button and see that visible is false and turn it to true. So again, watch this visible thing. This turns things off and on. So I'm trying to look for this one label that has a bad text field. I'm not seeing it, so let me try to save this again. Yeah, it's that label 1. Let me try to fix. So I'm still having problems with that, so I finally just deleted that label and created a new one here. I haven't changed the font of it. Now let's see if that works. Still. So now I have it working correctly. I've got my layout here. Now, like I say, sometimes you'll have problems with this GUI interface. In fact, mine just kind of froze up and I had to recreate it. And I find, especially when I'm going fast, sometimes I get some errors. So be careful with this, and I apologize, but sometimes you may it may just freeze up and you may have to quit. Sometimes you start moving things around, and you move one thing or resize one thing and other things move, and then there's not a whole lot you can do other than quit and start again. But keep this window open and try. You should be able to hit File, Save, and look at your code. And the first thing we want to make sure is we have it compiles, no errors, and then that means we got all legal names for everything. And also check your names. So your radio button should have names and your text field should have names. So those are the things we want. We're not too concerned about the labels. We don't do anything with the menu bar. And the button by default is button 1. And so you can change that, or you can just leave it as button 1. Now, we are going to, once we've got that set up, then we also have to do some more things. So again, going back to our GUI window, which we haven't closed, I'm going to click on our button. And so far we've been just doing the property tabs events here. We're going to go into the events tab here, and we're going to make an event so when you click on a button. So there's a mouse click event on a button. Here I'm going to click on that dot dot. It'll pop up a method here, a method name. And I'm going to call this something like, and it has to be a legal method name in Java. I'm going to say calculate button clicked, or some name like that, and then I'll have to find the code for that. So I'm going to say OK. Now I'm going to save this again, and I'm going to go back and open my code up again. Now inside my code, again, I should see all my values here, or all the objects I created. And then I'm just going to walk you through this code real quick. It sets up the menu and the size of our main pane. our window pane and does some things with that. And then it does things. It creates the button, and it creates each label and sets the values for each one of those. It sets up each radio button and each text field. So it uses like txt bill. That refers to the object up here that was a text field that we created. And here we're setting up, or we're setting the size and the making sure it's enabled and visible and stuff like that. So this should all be done. Simple GUI does all this, and then it adds it to what we call our window pane, our content pane, and then it displays that content pane. So this is stuff, again, we're not going to go over. Later on, if you do more Java programming, you'll learn more about this, but this is all done for us. So what we want to watch now, okay, I'm going to start at the top here, go down, and it sets up the button, and it sets up what is called a mouse listener event on the button, and it sets up a field called calculate button click. So this is early on in my code when I'm still setting up the button, and it's calling this method. I don't want to edit this code at all. There's nowhere for me to edit the code. I'm going to leave that code alone, but I'm going to go down and look for this method down below. So I'm going through all of this, all through this. I'm going to open this window so you can see where I am. I was way up at the top here when I found the button click. Now I'm going to go way down here. You see that spot there? I'm going to go way down, 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 down. Okay, it's added all the components, and now there's another method here called button calculate click, and that's where I have to put the code for my button. It says to do, and that's going to be my button code in here. So I'm going to set that up, and so let's look at this. So we're going to store the bill amount in a variable, and we'll have to do this. So we'll grab the text field from here. So if I go into my code, so here's my code here. Now I can grab the text field, and again, if I don't remember the names of everything, I can go up here and look. My bill amount was called txt bill with a capital B. So if I want to get that text, I can say txt bill dot get text will get the text field from that. So this is the get text field from that. But I'm going to save that to a double, so I can do some work, multiplication and stuff, arithmetic on it. So I'm going to declare a double called bill. Now if I just do that, double bill equals txt bill dot get text semicolon, and compile this, it'll be incompatible types, because this is going to return a string, and this is going to be a double, and so I need to convert a string into a double here. And so there's a number of different ways of doing that, and I suggest you use this double parse double method. So I'm going to do that here. I'm going to take what I have here and put it inside parentheses, so I can pass it to my double dot parse double method. So if I say double dot parse double, it's expecting a string, and here's the string I'm setting it. I'm going to the txt bill field and getting the text from that as a string. It's parsing it into a double and saving that into the bill. So again, there's a fair amount of work I have to do just to get that text into a variable that I can manipulate. So now I'm going to multiply that amount by 15% to get the tip. So see if you can do that. I'm going to declare a new variable for the tip. And it also is going to be a double, because these all could be decimal values. So tip is going to be the bill times 15%. And I'm going to calculate the total amount. So the total amount is going to be the bill plus the tip. Now I'm going to print some of these out in my interface here. I want to print the amount of the tip here, displayed here. Now this text field was, if I click on there, I can see it was txt tip. So I'm going to set txt tip. Now, just like there's a get text, there's also a set text method. Set text to the tip amount. Now, if I try to do that and compile, I'm going to get an error because it's going to want this as a string. So one thing I suggest is doing some formatting here with this. So we'll use a string.format, and this is the mask we're going to use to format this. So percent means it's a variable, and F means it's a floating point number, a decimal number, and the 0.2 means 2 decimal places. So I'm not going to talk too much. There's a whole link to string formats and how you can do that, but I'm not going to worry too much about it. For now, I'm just going to take this and use that code. So rather than doing tip, I'm going to say string.format, and then put in the mask and then the tip, the variable I want to format. And then I'm storing that into the text field for the tip. And likewise, I can do that for the total amount. Now that was called txt total. And it's nice to have this open also. If you keep the GUI stuff open, you can do that. So txt amount. So now I can compile this. Must have an error here. Oops, yeah, not amount, txt total. Okay, compile that. Now I can actually run this, and again, I want to keep my editor open here, and I'm going to run this. I'm just going to do the main. That's all I need to do. And I can hit calculate, and it should calculate the bill and a total amount. I'm not displaying the total amount correctly, so I can fix that. And the reason is that I'm doing my format here, and I'm putting the tip field, formatting the tip field and storing it in the total field. And I want to format the total field and set it out there. So one thing to watch for is that sometimes when you're doing this, you want to go back and edit your GUI interface and save that again. Now, if you hit save in your GUI interface, it's going to overwrite this and delete all your code here. So you can do that. Let's say I wanted to change something, but I'm going to go in here and I'm going to copy this all out of here, the code I've put in my calculate button. Maybe I'll go in here and I have to remove, or I forgot the radio buttons or something like that. Now I'm going to hit save as again. It saved it, but now it redid this, and so it's deleted everything in my calculate button. So that's why you want to, I often have a little maybe editor or some place where I can post this code, or just make sure you copy it before you save. So just remember that anytime you go into the GUI editor and hit save there, it overwrites your Java program and deletes any additions you've made to it. So the last thing you want to do, so now it always calculates a 15% tip. The last thing we want to do here is check with this radio button, and we can check if the different radio buttons are selected by the radio button name. So see if you can write code to change the tip amount. So what we'll be doing is something like here, each time we're calculating the bill, we might want to check if, what are my radio buttons called? So one's called radio button poor. So if radio button poor dot is selected is the method, and that's going to return true or false. If that radio button is clicked, it'll return true. So if that's true, I'm going to do something, and I'm going to calculate the tip this way. Now I have to watch out when I'm putting variables inside if-then statements. I don't want to often declare a variable inside if-then statements, because then it won't be found anywhere else. If I compile this, oops, yeah, let me fix that error. Is selected. So make sure I get the exact method name is selected here. But again, now that I've declared the tip in here, I've found. So one thing you want to make sure is don't declare variables inside your methods. What I should be doing is declaring the double tip up here and setting it equal to 0, and then just using it down here in my if then. So that's how I want to be structuring that. So if they, there. If poor is selected, we should just be doing a 10% tip or 0.01. And otherwise I can do the other one. So I can set up your if then else so that you're doing all the different tips. So you should be checking all of your radio buttons to poor, good, and great, and calculating your tip differently depending on what radio buttons they said. And then you should be able to compile this and run this. And hopefully you'll see if you hit poor service, you'll get a poor tip. If you hit great service, you'll hit a better tip. Now one thing to watch is that right now you can have multiple radio buttons selected, so you'll have to just click and unselect one and select the other one. I'm not going to go over how you have to program that into Java right now, so just be aware of that. Now that should wrap up everything we want to do there. There's a bonus challenge. If you want, you can add another text field here and set that up. Remember, if you do that, that when you save it from your GUI interface, it's going to erase your button click stuff. So make sure you get a copy of this before you try that if you're going to try the bonus challenge.